Hi, I'm Marlene Kriegbaum. I am in the national events and I am the national show secretary. I do a lot of gardening at home, always have, been involved with different types of gardening and flowers. After a busy day and you want to go home and you're going back to the barn and you're going to visit your horse will eat a lot of these things too. It'll eat your kale. A lot of horses like lettuce, so you can sit down, and especially with this one plant that they call the ketchup and fries plant. That is a very, very unique plant. I'm sure a lot of horses, I know I had one that would eat a little bit of potato. So you could sit down and you could enjoy the tomatoes and your horse could enjoy the potatoes. And today I'm just going to show you just kind of briefly how to get things started, how to transplant and different things like that. The first thing I'll do is to transplant this one little tiny plant here. When you want to start with your soil, you're always going to want to start with some wet soil. You do not want to use real dry soil. You're going to get your hands dirty. You're going to mix it up. Till it kind of starts clumping together. And at that point, you're about ready to start. I prefer to use clay pots. They are a little more absorbent, and they have the capability of taking in air and expelling air. So they're porous. They're not like the other plants. You're going to want to put just a little bit of soil in the bottom. You're going to want to take your little plant like this, and a lot of them in the springtime come in little tiny plastic pots that are real easy to take on the bottom and push up. If they don't do that, then you can just take it and just tap it on the edge of a table, and you'll get the whole root ball like this. When you transplant, you always want to make sure that the top of your plant here is going to be level with where you want to have your plant in your pot. In this particular case, I put in a little too much soil, so I took a little bit out. And then you're going to want to take and just put the soil just gently around and just kind of poke it down with your fingers. Once you're done with it, you're going to want to water the plant very, very well. And any plant is far better off if you water it really well and then let it dry out. A plant will always show signs of wanting water by wilting. And that's what I mean by where the water comes right out of it. That's a well-watered plant. That's what you kind of want to do with every single plant when you water them. A good test of whether your plant has enough water is when you feel the top of it. If you feel moisture on the top of your soil, you know that there's going to be moisture down in the bottom. If it's kind of iffy, if you take your soil and you pinch it and it stays up in a little peak, you know it has enough water in it. If it just crumbles, then you need to water it. Another thing that I'm going to show you is how to start things by seed. These are something that really is quite nice. Very quickly, you can get this in almost any type of a big block store or garden store, anything like that. These are little peat pots. You put them in water and they're going to expand just a huge amount. This first plant that I did transplant is rosemary. It's an herb that really, I just love herbs, especially fresh ones, but that does extremely well in the house, and then later you can plant it outside if you want. The one thing that starts very well in this type of peat pot is like your little tomatoes. Once the peat pot expands, you're going to want to loosen up the top. You're going to pull back the little netting that's on it. Going to want to loosen up the top just a little bit. And in that, you're going to take and plant your little seed. And you're going to want to plant several of them. You're just going to kind of sprinkle it on the top like that. Once they start to sprout, then you're going to want to pick out your healthiest plants. And I'm just covering these ever so slightly. And then these come in a type of a tray like this, that once you get it filled, you can just put those little pots right in there. And then it has a dome type of thing that you would put on. This acts like a little greenhouse. Again, you do not want to put this in a direct sunlight. Indirect sun in your house is very good. Once this sprouts, then you want to take this greenhouse off and go from there. Some of the things that are really, really great to plant are like your basils. Just all types of herbs are absolutely great. Here you've got your flowering kale. This is what they call the red glamour red kale. And it's like the red Russian kale like this. This can also be started in these little pots like this peat pot. Basil, there is just an enormous amount of different types of basil that you can get. This is what they call the boxwood basil. It's a little bit smaller. Most of people that are used to the basil are used to a little bit larger basil. These are also great because the plants are very prolific. You can certainly take and you can cut them, and you can dry them extremely easily. You could take a rubber band, wrap a rubber band around it, and just take it and hang it in a nice warm place to dry, out of the sunlight so that it preserves the color. If it's not a dry area, then you would want to dry it in a very, very low oven, and it doesn't take very long to dry. Once you get your things established, you're going to, of course, want to fertilize. All fertilizers come with 3 basic ingredients: your nitrogen, your phosphorus, and your potassium. That's the NPK. Your nitrogen is what you would want for a plant like this or anything with a lot of green leaves. If you're going to do your tomatoes, you're going to want your next highest thing, which is your phosphorus. That's for your fruit and for vegetables. And your potassium is just for the overall health of the plant. Another thing that is extremely easy to grow, of course, is your greens. Something like this. This is just quite a mixture of different types of salad greens. You can get your lettuce and you can put it in a pot like this. You would just sprinkle it over your seed over your soil, and then just loosely cover your soil with it. The smaller the seed, the less deep you want to plant that seed. If you want to learn more about the ketchup and fries plant, there's going to be an article in the Modern Arabian Horse Magazine, issue 2.